Hello and welcome to this special interview on the Shaili Chopra Report. My guest today, Thomas Friedman, the columnist for New York Times and of course, well-known India watcher.
Tom, thank you for joining us. First question.
Traditionally, we have seen, at least from an India standpoint, that Republicans might have been better than Democrats in power in the United States. Will you be able to draw an inference as to which of the two candidates are probably better for a country like India?
Well, I tend to think about who's best for America, and I'd like to think about who's best for America being also best for India. So, because I think a healthy, confident America is a healthy, confident democracy, and that's good for other democracies, whether it's the European Union or India. So, we're not allowed as New York Times columnists to endorse anybody formally, but anyone reading my column, I think, would say that the balance of my columns tend to be more supportive of President Obama than Mitt Romney. But as far as India is concerned, I really think that the issues that determine U.S.-India relations, which are mostly about trade these days, trade and commerce, we don't have a lot of disagreements, serious disagreements about global politics with India. I honestly don't think whoever wins this election, President Obama or President Romney, in terms of the India-U.S. bilateral relationship, that there would be much difference.
Okay, you already think that. Okay.
Yeah.
Lately, though, there's been plenty of focus on India, largely on the economic front, talk about foreign direct investment and so on. Do you think India is really critical for the U.S. as a power to stand up against China?
Right. Well, I think there are two basic issues in the U.S.-India relationship today. One has to do with broader geopolitics. And clearly there is, as a long-term trend, the United States not containing, but making sure that it is balancing a rising China. And I think it sees the U.S.-India relationship as important to that overall sense of balancing a rising China. So that bodes well for the relationship. At the same time, we do have a lot of trade issues. Not so many disputes as just wanting to expand trade between the two countries and expand investment. And there, to the degree that India continues opening its economy to things like financial services and the like, and retail, I think the two countries will be working together more closely. But there isn't a lot of tension right now that I'm aware of in the U.S.-India relationship. I think it's really going along pretty smoothly, and I don't see any reason that would change.
But isn't it clear that America has a very strong relationship towards China, largely because the two countries can't do without each other, no matter how much of a currency manipulator each of these candidates go on talking about?
There's no question we have a much more integrated and intimate relationship with China. We are, I think Neil Ferguson is right about this, in some ways one country called Chi-America. Okay, there is no Indian equivalent yet. There is no such thing as India-America. I'd be happy if there was, but there isn't. So, China has its own different set of issues, opportunities, strengths, and weaknesses, and they're different from India's, but they're not exactly coasting along on easy street either. Nobody is.
As you know, Tom, Obama has been pushing for plenty of opening up of the Indian market since the time he arrived in India. He wants foreign direct investment, he wants banking reforms and so on. Now that India has indeed opened up some of its key sectors, do you think the US is looking at it as a huge opportunity?
I think it's a much bigger deal for Indians than it is for Americans. Most Americans are not aware at all of the internal dynamics of our economic relationship with India. And so it's important to those American companies, and it's important to Indians, but it's not an issue that really the American people are particularly focused on.
As an India watcher, do you really think stores like Walmart can be game-changing for an economy that's dependent on consumption?
Well, again, I don't really know what would be game-changing, but I do believe in the concept of glovolution. And that is when you can't drive reform from below, and you can't really get it from above, there's often a desire to get it from beyond. Okay, and that is that when you bring in, this is not an advertisement for Walmart at all, that's a decision Indians have to make, and I don't know enough about the retail market there. But when you bring in these big global companies, they bring in big global best practices. It's not just about what's on the shelf. It's their logistics, it's their accounting, it's their business practices. These stores employ depending on how many you have, tens of thousands of people potentially, and they employ them using the best global practices in all of these areas. And so I could imagine a situation where if India got a critical mass of, and I'm not a particular fan of these big box stores, but let's say it did, whether it's the Walmarts, the Carrefours, the global supermarket chains, I can see it having a positive effect on India's internal logistics, which has historically been a big challenge for India.
As an India watcher, do you think there's been a complete shift in the way India is looked at in this part of the world today, given the 2 years of scams and corruption that have marred the headlines? More importantly, the concern that India might be now in a sluggish growth period as opposed to a rising growth period.
What is the perception you think these days in America of the state of the Indian economy and India in general?
I think the Indian brand has been dented a little bit, and I say that with a great disappointment. That is, the India shining, was always an exaggeration. But there was a sense of India very much on an upward trajectory, with all its problems, but nevertheless on an upward trajectory, this incredible youth bulge leading the way. And in the last few years, you say India to people here who are in the know, who follow the story. And the first word that comes into your mind is paralysis. A sense of kind of political paralysis, and maybe even a little drift. There is an anti-globalization strand in India, and then there's a deep pro-globalization strand, and they've been in rough sort of competition. And I think that when you think about globalization, its challenges and opportunities, the important thing to always remember is that it goes both ways. It can be incredibly empowering, globalization. Look at the little camera we're working on right now. And it can be, you're just one person. You're like a whole TV station walking around now. But it can be incredibly disempowering. Huge global forces you feel are shaping your life and your market. It can be incredibly homogenizing. Oh, McDonald's on every corner. And incredibly particularizing. You now can have your own Indian website broadcast network. So globalization goes both ways. And the trick is to understand that, to get the best out of it, and to cushion yourself from the worst. Anyone who tells you it's all good or all bad doesn't get it. All right? So the important thing, I think, for Indians is decide, we need foreign direct investment. We need both the money and the technology that comes with it. Let's invite that in. Let's invite it in a way where we feel we won't be overwhelmed by it, and that it will, in ways, undermine our democracy. But don't think for a second that keeping it out isn't also undermining your democracy in other ways, empowering other people, domestically maybe, to have huge monopolies that can also be very perverting of your economy.
The line that the Democrats have been taking, Osama is dead and General Motors is alive. Does that one line really put the piece together for Obama's campaign this time around? Does it speak out to the middle classes that he really wants to lobby for?
Yeah, I mean, it really does come down to, did he keep us safe, and did he take an economy that was really heading toward a depression and stabilize it and turn the arrow the other way? And I think that's what they would like to tell the American people. And it's clear that given the narrow sliver of a lead that Obama has, that for the moment, as we sit here today, about a month before the election, a narrow sliver of Americans, buy that argument. But I think we still have 4 important weeks to go.
Okay. How important do you think, Tom, are Wall Street reforms and the banking changes that we saw at the height of the crisis that Obama had to undertake in terms of a say for his re-election? Do you think that will have an impact?
Yeah, I mean, again, not the details so much. For the average voter, they're worried about their own job and their own bank, not big Wall Street banks and their fate. But Obama did what he had to do. He used the government balance sheet to stabilize the banks. The government actually made money in the long run by doing this. And I think the country's better off for it. But when you don't have a job, you don't really think about those kind of things. And when you have as many people officially unemployed and unofficially unemployed or underemployed, that's really the driving issue.
Let's for a moment focus on that whole job stealer story. I mean, China and India are constantly coming up in campaign talk, in debates, as job stealers. Outsourcing is a bad word. Isn't this a dead story?
Well, looking for the outsourcing boogeyman, that's become an evergreen, what we call an evergreen, something that comes up every 4 years,
Right.
with the elections. And the point I've made, of course, is that outsourcing it's so 1990s. Okay, that is that the world has gotten so much more hyper-connected today, so much flatter, and that there's no out anymore, and there's no in.
Right.
There's just good, better, and best. That's the world we live in.
Right.
We live in a world that is now so seamlessly interconnected that there's just good, better, and best. And therefore you better be educating your kids, your citizens, your innovators to be among the good, better, and best, because in today's world I can pluck them from anywhere now.
Right.
Thomas Friedman, thank you very much for your time. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this special interview here on the Shaili Chopra Report. But stay tuned with us here online as we bring you more and more reports traveling across the United States.